Do you ever find yourself wondering how you can be as productive as me, a random YouTuber with blueberries in her fridge? Well, follow along for these 1 million ADHD tips, and you can be just as awesome as I am. Okay, I lied. We're not talking about ADHD tips, we're talking about something better: ADHD misinformation. Because, guys, academics on TikTok and also TikTokers themselves have a serious problem, and the ghost haunting us all is misinformation about ADHD hiding on TikTok. What's up, guys? Meg Talks Science here. I'm Meg. I talk about science, and today we are going into ADHD misinformation on TikTok and why it is slowly driving all of academia insane. So, I'm not a doctor, just someone with a love of the chat and a master's degree in neuroscience, but I'm not using that for this one. So, let's get into it. Guys, the thing is, we live in an age where people would rather go to TikTok than Google for information. And that's cool and all, but it does mean that anyone with a smartphone and an internet connection can post misinformation on TikTok. Fortunately, academics have TikTok accounts too, and they have decided to use them for research purposes. So what is ADHD? Well, ADHD is one of the most common disorders that children can have, and it's pretty common amongst adults too. Its symptoms are characterized by inattentiveness, so not being able to pay attention to things, hyperactivity, or when you're more active than the situation might call for, and also impulsiveness, so when it's really hard for you to control your own behaviors. ADHD also falls along the neurodivergent spectrum, which is a paradigm that some people, including me, believe in, which celebrates the naturally occurring differences in cognition that people might have. Basically, and I'm summarizing here, it means accepting that some people are different from others, and that doesn't have to mean that something is wrong with them. It's okay to be you, basically. And that's all fantastic. It's really good and important to celebrate ADHD. However, on TikTok, it seems like the celebration of ADHD has kind of given way to spreading misinformation about ADHD. So one study from this year had two clinical psychologists, which are practicing psychologists who were familiar with ADHD, go through the top 100 videos tagged ADHD on TikTok. And they kind of dissected the information or misinformation which was held within those videos and ranked them from a scale of helpful to unhelpful. What they found was that only about half of the videos they looked at accurately described symptoms or treatments of ADHD. Of the inaccurate symptoms, plenty of them were actually discussing a different disorder, such as an eating disorder. Sometimes people were talking about a symptom that could reflect multiple conditions. And sometimes people were just talking about the human experience as a whole, and it wasn't really defined as ADHD at all. The treatments discussed in the video were almost even worse, with only negative references to ADHD medication at all, and only 40% of the claims made on the treatment side of things had any empirical evidence associated with them. So basically, the misinformation problem on TikTok is pretty rampant. So another study examined the hashtag ADHD test. I just said hashtag twice. And unfortunately, hashtag ADHD test did not pass the hashtag ADHD test. So of the 50 videos that they looked at, 92% of them were misleading because the researchers were comparing the hashtag ADHD test content to an actual psychologically validated ADHD screener. And they only found a video as accurate or helpful when it had at least 4 of the 6 criterion present, and 92% of the videos there didn't. Furthermore, the videos that were actually rated to be the most helpful and the most informative had the least engagement of all the videos that they actually looked at. Also, there were a non-insignificant amount of videos trying to sell products. Anyway, yeah, so we were gonna have a segment of the video here where I was like, look, I took the ADHD screening test and I obviously don't have ADHD. But all of the things on hashtag ADHD test apply to me, so maybe the criteria is a bit too wide. That segment has since been canceled because I don't want to lie to you guys, and it's not because hashtag ADHD test wasn't relatable enough. So who knows, maybe this video is slightly more personal than I thought it was. And guys, this isn't even a new problem because there was a study done all the way in 2022 where some psychologists again looked at the top 100 videos on hashtag ADHD, and what they found, again, was that half of the videos there were misleading, but what they found further was that of the videos that weren't misleading, only about 27% of them were even helpful. They didn't have any actionable information, they tended to just be personal experience. Now, that's not a bad thing, but it is kind of concerning if you're trying to get information about ADHD from TikTok. So why are we posting about it like this, psychologically speaking? Well, one researcher, Abigail Lavelle, would argue that it's not really part of finding truth. It's more about identity crafting and finding a community on TikTok. We can use relatability and humor as ways to search out and signal to others that we're part of this community. And then it doesn't really matter if that relatability or humor is consistent with a medical diagnosis, because what we were searching for to begin with is the community. And this makes sense. And I think that people with ADHD and people on the neurodivergent spectrum need a community. It's fun to complain to your friends about something that's going wrong in your life, and you know exactly why it's going that way. I completely understand that. It also seems like the algorithm just pushes this relatability and humor to a really big degree. If you need the algorithm to push you in front of other people like you need a way to signal that you're like other people. This can lead to the construction of community tropes that we all share together. The issue is that they're not necessarily consistent with a medical diagnosis. My problem with content focusing on ADHD relatability and humor is that it can dilute helpful or true information about ADHD, especially if you're someone searching for that. While I would never recommend searching for health information on TikTok, if you do, you are bound to come across so much misinformation that just seems blatantly almost harmful. I mean, the amount of workbooks, coaches, and products that may or may not actually help you on there just seems downright predatory. And I feel like the ADHD community deserves better, especially if you're new to the hashtag and you're searching across ADHD stuff because you feel different from other people or from people in your surroundings. Then you come across all this relatable content, and it can start to really look like you have ADHD no matter what you search. Even if you do genuinely have ADHD, you've now been sold several products that may or may not actually help you, and it just feels predatory at best. And I'm completely aware that a diagnosis is not within the realm of possibility for everyone. I'm an American. I understand it's expensive, it's time-consuming. It's really hard to get a diagnosis from a doctor. And honestly, this video is not about self-diagnosis, okay? If someone on TikTok says they have ADHD, it is not my business to question how they came to that conclusion. It is their business. But the misinformation on TikTok seems like a solvable problem to me. Like, maybe we could just stop posting it and stop engaging in it so much. I would like to see us build communities without the misinformation. Hashtags like actual ADHD, or ADHD test are places for people to build communities with each other and commiserate and complain. And I know that a TikTok video isn't the place for nuance, but hey, maybe a YouTube video is. Because guys, I like community and I like complaining and I like commiserating. I just have an issue with misinformation and videos that are basically like, did you know that this is a symptom of ADHD? And then it's like an actual eating disorder. Or something like, and you need this helpful product to solve all your ADHD problems. And it's something completely useless, like this glass bottle that's living on my table. But if you want good advice for people with ADHD or helpful, true information, I would say start with the NHS or Mayo Clinic if you're American. These are generally places with actually like vetted information put there by medical professionals, and it can be helpful to you. And they usually link out helpfully to other places that might have good information. Because the thing is, it's okay to want to have a community. I want to have a community. I understand that. I just think that we as a community deserve a lot less misinformation and a lot more helpful information. So yeah, what do you guys think about all this? Am I just a stick in the mud who's a bit too boring to see that this is all humor to begin with? And it's not really misinformation if you never felt informed in the first place? Or is there something actually going on here? Let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you next time. Okay, bye.